The airbrushing industry is one where progress is slow, if not stagnant for the most part. Without knowing a bit of history, we may look at some of the most popular airbrushes and think, these are the newest and best airbrushes ever produced. They must be. After all, cars, phones, computers, plastic miniatures, and pretty much everything else are better today than they were 40 years ago. But that's not always the reality in the airbrushing world. It wasn't until I started looking into vintage airbrushes that I realized how wrong I was. The time when airbrush technology reached peak performance is debatable, but it's safe to say it was achieved over 4 decades ago. The Olympus MP and SP series, the Tire & Chandler Model A, the Apache AV and the Aerograph Super 63 are just some examples of airbrushes no longer produced that are just as good in performance and quality as some of the most popular airbrushes available today. Airbrush companies today rely heavily on existing, sometimes ancient designs because of their proven performance and reliability. After all, why change something that works? But not harder as Steenbeck, one of the oldest airbrush companies in the world, with a reputation for top performance and outstanding quality, decided not to follow the trend, saying, "You know what? We don't care about everybody else. We're going to create a new and redesigned line of airbrushes, not just a refreshed version of existing model, no. We're going back to the drawing board to develop a completely different product with innovative and uncharted technologies. We're going to shock the world of airbrushing." Today we're going to review the harder Steenbeck Infiniti 2024 with the 0.25mm titanium nozzle. The latest and most likely the final entry in the new line. Yes, we may still see a new Giraldez and Cult of Paint version, but that's probably it. The company claims that the new Infiniti offers unparalleled precision and control, the ultimate detail airbrush. But have they actually accomplished it? Let's dig in, shall we? In this review, we will focus only on the 0.25mm nozzle needle setup. I'm not going to talk about the 0.44mm nozzle because that will be essentially discussing a different airbrush with a different purpose, which deserves its own review. Besides, most people will buy this airbrush for its detail capabilities, which is also what I'm most interested in. The new Infiniti 2024 is a completely redesigned version of the older model. It's incredible how harder Steenbeck was able to recreate this airbrush with entirely different specs while maintaining the same iconic look. It weighs 79 grams with the microcap installed, compared to 80 grams for the previous generation with the 2ml cup. Basically the same, definitely in the lightweight category. At 25 psi, it has an approximate air velocity of 5 meters per second, slightly higher than the previous generation's 4.4 meters per second. So it still maintains the low air velocity commonly experienced with many detail airbrushes. I want to emphasize, I do not believe the lower air velocity makes an airbrush better for detail. While it's true that some of the best detail airbrushes have lower air velocity, there are so many other variables to consider. Some of my favorite detail airbrushes are nowhere near this lower air velocity. Yet they're still some of the best for the job. The new Infiniti features a shorter body, bringing the trigger closer to the front end, a distance between that of the older Infiniti and the Giraldez Infiniti. To mitigate the short distance between the trigger and the paint cup, the company changed the angle of the paint cup to a more vertical position. What you're seeing in the picture is the new 0.4ml micro cup, which is included alongside the traditional 2ml and 4ml cups in the 2-in-1 version of the airbrush. I absolutely love it. I wonder why it took so long to make this happen and why other companies aren't doing the same. Honestly, for the level of detail I use these airbrushes for, I only need a few drops of paint and anything bigger than this cup just gets in the way. While the body of the airbrush is shorter than its predecessor, the handle is actually longer. The reason for this was to achieve perfect weight balance precisely at the air valve level. I liked that they carried over the needle chucking nut first introduced with the Giraldez Infiniti, which assists the user by guiding the needle and avoiding damage. The most radical change, beside the nozzle design, was made to the type of action and shape of the trigger. In the previous generation, the back lever of the trigger was flat at the point of contact with the needle chucking guide, which made the trigger retraction slower for the first part of the stroke, eventually progressing in travel speed as the trigger was pulled back. I didn't love that. I felt like I had to retrain myself every time I picked it up. But I understand what they were going for. This has been revised. Now the back lever maintains a round shape at the point of contact with the needle chucking guide, making the action consistent from beginning to end. When it comes to the new shape, nothing is more personal than that, and it comes down to individual preferences. But here is what I think about it. According to the company, the new trigger was inspired by Eastern practices to enhance sensory feedback and intuitive control. This sounds wonderful as a concept, but in reality, the trigger is not an actual extension of my body, and the knurled pad and sharp edges do not translate to better trigger control sensitivity for me. To me, it's just a huge distraction and honestly quite uncomfortable. In airbrushing, the trigger is just in the way between me and my work. The more straightforward the trigger, the better control I have. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate some texture for a grippy surface, but anything more than that is just unnecessary noise. So how does it spray? The first time I tested the capabilities of the new Infiniti was on a Space Marine Terminator. I wanted to see and feel the level of control and responsiveness I could get out of this brush. I usually don't use masking tape because I challenge myself to be as precise as possible. I believe that if I can draw a line no thicker than a human hair on a piece of paper with my airbrush, I can definitely paint my models without overspraying. Can I stay within the shape of the model with the Infiniti? Does the Infiniti deliver on point every time I pull back the trigger? Does the paint flow gradually and with confidence? Yes, for about 5 seconds. I didn't show this in my video tutorial, but halfway through the painting process I was so frustrated that I stopped and considered starting over. The Infiniti kept clogging on me. I had to clean the tip of the needle every few seconds to get it to spray. I was having such an hard time that I did a poor job keeping my aim within the shapes of the model. I kept overspraying all over the place. I was working with Golden iFlow, some of the best airbrush paint out there, properly reduced for detail work. So I decided to paint the basic section of the remaining models in the Terminator squad. But this time using 4 other detail airbrushes I picked from the wall. A Badger-Stoddard 2020, a Sparmas SP20X, a Gallery Mobius 02, and a Apache Raptor with a 0.2 setup. I used the same paints and thinning solution I'd used with the Infiniti to check if I was just having a bad day. Well, it looks like I wasn't losing my mind. I didn't experience any of those problems with those airbrushes. Yes, after a while they will also get a tip dry, but nowhere near as fast as the Infiniti. Some perform better than others, of course, but I could always feel when it was time to clean the needle tip, and they definitely didn't just stop spraying. The new titanium nozzle is designed to operate and provide excellent atomization at very low pressure, and it does. It's remarkable what Harder Steenbeck has accomplished. With the right paint reduction, I'm able to spray clean, uninterrupted lines even at absurdly low air pressure of 5 psi. And the Infiniti atomizes the paint beautifully. Unfortunately, I believe this was achieved at the cost of consistency. The configuration, airflow rate, and other specs required to achieve such performance ultimately accelerated the dry tip effect to the point that the airbrush quickly stopped spraying. Maybe it wouldn't be as bad with more forgiving mediums like lacquers, but most miniature painters, myself included, work almost exclusively with acrylics. Dry tip is something we just have to deal with, but the amount of retarder and flow improver I had to add to my thinning mix to get the Infiniti to spray consistently and not clog every 5 seconds is absurd. Most miniature painters don't want to mess with that. They just want to pour some Vallejo Game Air, some thinner and spray. Additionally, at this point it's widely known that at 25 psi, the spray pattern starts narrowing, reaching its narrowest point at 30 psi and returning progressively to normal at 35 psi. It's not very usable at that pressure, and that's that. And now, it's time for the spaghetti score. Before getting into that, consider supporting me on Patreon. Besides having access to the full footage of my videos, I will upload the results of experiments I regularly conduct in the world of miniature painting and airbrushing. Like this study, where I tested different thinners, paints and the effect they have on the airbrush needle, in order to identify the best combination for the best airbrush performance. Additionally, you will be able to join our Discord group, where I'll do my best to answer your questions and can freely talk anything related to this hobby. Thank you for watching. Number 1. Build quality. By today's standards, Airbrush Steenbeck represent the pinnacle of quality. Every single piece of this airbrush is crafted beautifully. Perfect finish, not a manufacturing scratch. The internal components are so smooth and polished that extracting and inserting the needle is an extremely satisfying experience on its own. But I'm not going to give it a 10 out of 10, and here is why. Under magnification, the nozzle appears to be quite off-center. No matter how many different ways I adjust the nozzle within the nozzle cap, it stays off-center in the same spot. Which means that most likely the nozzle cap itself is out of spec. The effect on the spray pattern is subtle, hardly noticeable when working on a model. But if I test the brush on a piece of paper, I can see the paint pulling slightly to the right. Now, most people are not going to notice or bother, but I'm very picky with this, and if there is something that I don't like to see is an offset nozzle, especially on a $280 plus airbrush. Not when I have $20 Chinese airbrushes that are better centered than this. I'm sure this is 1 in 100 chance and I just got bad luck. I have many more harder Steenbeck airbrushes and they're all perfect. Moreover, I wish I could say I'm happy with harder Steenbeck customer service, but I really can't. 1 month to reply to an email is just too long, only to request additional proof, as if the picture under the microscope wasn't enough. They're quick to solve any issue for people who are known in their brush community, but good luck if you're just a regular customer. Taking all this into consideration, I'll give it an 8 out of 10 for build quality. Number 2. Aesthetics. The Infiniti has one of the most recognizable and iconic look in the world of airbrushing. Airbrush Steenbeck knows this well, and they not only maintained the look but improved upon it. She's a 10 all the way. Number 3. Ergonomics. The Infiniti isn't trying to be the slimmest detail airbrush out there, and that's totally fine. It's a good fit for most users and well balanced. The quality of the materials also give it a premium feel to the touch. Still, I just don't understand the trigger. I find it uncomfortable and distracting. 6 out of 10. Number 4. Spray control. I'm so conflicted on this one. With the paint properly reduced, the new nozzle is capable of wonders when it comes to slowly and gradually releasing that paint. Unfortunately, the type of reduction needed to achieve that is quite extreme with acrylics, and I still don't think I achieved the perfect mix. There is only so much flow improver and retarder I can add to my thinning solution before I start having paint initiation and atomization issues. Common thinners like Vallejo just won't work on their own, and most people don't know how to mess with that. At the end of the day, how easily can I achieve detail? How much do I need to focus to get the results I want? Quite a lot with the Infiniti. 6 out of 10. Number 5. Trigger responsiveness. It's good, but not that good. I know. The Infiniti is supposed to be extremely responsive, even more responsive than a Micron, some people say. Well, I looked for that amazing trigger response and I just didn't find it. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely an improvement over the previous generation, definitely more consistent, but more responsive than a Micron or a Sotar? It's just not. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. Some people prefer a less sensitive trigger, and for some, it translates to better management of paint flow. That's especially true for beginners. Taking all this into consideration, I'll give the Infiniti a 7 out of 10. Number 6. Atomization. The new Infiniti produces some of the best atomization of paint I ever experienced. Definitely unmatched at extremely low PSI. I'm not sure how they accomplished that, but it's truly remarkable. I have to give it another 10 out of 10. Number 7. Versatility. The new Infiniti 2024 must be the least versatile airbrush in my possession so far. The 0.25mm nozzle excels at one thing and one thing only: extreme detail at low PSI. Also, I'm not going to pretend that the spray pattern narrowing between 25 and 35 PSI isn't a massive flaw. That's a pressure many people work with, even with detail airbrushes. 2 out of 10. Ease of cleaning. I don't think there is anything out there easier to clean than a harder Steenbeck airbrush. It's so easy that it's just no fun for me. 10 out of 10. I know, the scores are just so polarizing on this one. Number 9. Price to quality performance ratio. The solo version of the Infiniti sells for around $280 in the United States. I think it's priced just right for what it is. A top quality detail airbrush with extremely low pressure capabilities. Definitely worth considering if you're obsessed with detail. 8 out of 10. Number 10. Is it good for beginners? Absolutely not. This airbrush with the 0.25mm nozzle setup is for experienced users who know how to handle dilution at an advanced level. I experienced some frustration with it, and I have many other airbrushes to compare it to. A beginner will most likely have a negative experience with it. 3 out of 10. They will definitely be better off with the 0.44mm nozzle setup, but that's for another video. Let's bring it all together, and the new Infiniti gets a spaghetti score of 70 out of 100. Not bad. The new Infiniti is definitely an improvement over the previous generation. Still, I just don't think this setup is for most users. Their amazing low PSI atomization that harder Steenbeck has achieved with this new titanium nozzle comes at a cost, and the cost is consistency of paint flow and picky dilution. If you enjoyed this review, give it a like and subscribe to the channel, and join me in the pursuit of becoming the fastest airbrush slinger in the West. Hee-haw!